Good evening and happy holidays to many of you. Easter, Passover, just April Fool's Day. Uh, Many things going on right now, and not least among them, this is a great time to be a sports fan. We have the NCAA tournament, men's basketball tournament, ending tomorrow night, and it's been quite a ride for a lot of fans. Uh, Baseball started this week. The Masters in golf is coming up. It's just a wonderful time. And as usual, I have some thoughts on what we talked about during the past week and where we're going to go this week. And then in particular, this is where I give you some hints and instructions about what I'm calling our midterm exercise. I hesitate to call it an exam because it's not an exam. It's an opportunity for you to think and express what things you've learned and things that you've discovered as you've gone through the first half of the course. So that's the purpose of my speech tonight. Okay. Last week was absolutely great. Competitive balance. It's a fun thing to discuss. And as we can see, some of us thought it's important, some of us don't. And I think I pointed out to one or two people on the discussion board, many economists think that competitive balance is necessary to a degree, but then they also almost contradict themselves. Not quite, but we talk about how dynasties are good for sports, and that dynasties in a major market can be very good because it, excuse me, promotes the value of the sport as a whole. But overall, I think we had some very interesting ideas about what gets us to watch. Why do we bother? Why do we invest so much of our time, our energy, and our money in the concept of sports? It's a product that we love, and it's a product that there seems to be almost an endless appetite for. And this is very interesting because in economics, that's not an absolutely common commodity. A product that just seems to grow and grow and grow. And we see this being a money generator, but the thing is, what I really hope we saw was how this can start working on the concept of value. So to transition to this week, when you look at the material for week 5, we talk about the value of a sports entity, whether it be a professional franchise, or you could look at a major college team, something like that. What's the value of that to a community? What's the value of that to a city, to a state, to a region? How does that affect the economy? Is it important for these regions to have sport as a centerpiece of their community life? And in many cases, the answer is yes. Also, though, there are arguments from many economists who say the estimate of the value is overblown, and that actually it brings with it costs and other negative externalities that don't completely benefit to the extent that the sports entrepreneur, the sports league, the sport owner would want us to believe. So that when, let's say for instance, an NFL owner says, build me a new stadium, Mr. Mayor, or I'm going to pack up my team and leave, sometimes it seems like the mayor and the city and the state and its governor and everybody bend over backwards to get that team to stay. And then we find out the benefits aren't even as much as they were before. Or sometimes the team packs up and goes anyway after concessions have been made. Or maybe we get the private financing of a stadium. We talk about, stadiums being built with an owner's own money or the team's own money. But we don't quite talk about all the, say, road improvements and infrastructure improvements and transportation improvements that a state or a city will pitch in to make that happen because they firmly believe that the benefits are there. So this is something I want you to really look at with a critical eye and then come to some conclusions and some ideas that you can work into your midterm exercise. Now, I'm including last year's instructions too. It's typically something I do just to make sure I haven't missed anything. But what you're going to be asked to do this year is an assignment that I've had great success with for several years now. And it actually has the kind of informal blessing and approval of somebody who would know at least the answer for them. And you'll notice the title is called the NBA Owner's Dilemma. And it talks about a problem that, well, we're right there this year. We're right at the end of the NBA regular season. And it's an issue that the commissioners talked about addressing and that many fans talk about, coaches and owners talk about it. It's this idea of what do we do about finishing, tanking, whatever you want to call it, to get into the draft rather than get into the playoffs. And when I first created this assignment, we had a student who had the good fortune, it was an on-campus student in SMG 401, who on a cross-country flight, he was one of our baseball players, managed to get bumped up to first class and sit next to an NBA owner. And he recognized the man's name, he recognized the gentleman, introduced himself, and they had a nice conversation. And one of the things our student did was tell him about this midterm assignment. And the owner, who was Mr. Ted Leonsis of the Washington Wizards, said, "Wow, that's a good question. I'll tell you what my answer is." And so with that being said, I'm going to hold back on telling you what Mr. Leonsis' answer was, but I want you to know that he said that this was a real problem, a real issue, and something that came up. Now, this was 5 or 6 years ago. There's been some time and some attempts to address the issue, but it's back as a topic again. So here we go with it. The title, as you see, once again in the assignment, is the NBA Owner's Dilemma. And what I'm asking you to do is fill the role of a consultant to a team that's right on the edge of making the playoffs or finishing in the running for a lottery pick. What do you do? What do you tell your coach? Play hard and win? Get us in the playoffs? Or just go through the motions, get us in the lottery? All right? Pretty simple sounding, but there's got a lot of business considerations to it, a lot of economic consideration. So here's where you really have to step back from your position as a fan and to think like that owner and what's going to be good for my team for the next 10 years. So just to give you an example, I made sure I wrote it down beforehand. The actual teams that are in that situation as of today, as of Sunday afternoon, are the Bucks, the Heat, the Pistons, the Pelicans, the Nuggets, and the Clippers. Those are the teams that find themselves in the situation. Still got a chance to make the playoffs? Could end up in the lottery. All right? What do you do if you're the owner of one of those franchises? What decisions do you make? How do you see the long-term benefits of for your team panning out over time based on what decision you make? It's a really interesting assignment. I think you're going to have fun with it. We've always gotten some really great answers, and I'm hoping that you guys will do the same. From the tone of your discussions and the ideas that you've thrown forward, I really don't think that's going to be a problem at all. Okay, so that's the scope for this evening. Make sure you do review this. I do have last year's instructions to take a look at it. Good luck, and I hope you have a lot of fun. Thanks.